Hey the berries, welcome to my final patch of 2023. We are on patch 13.24 with the release of the Hawaiian Pizza mid laner slash support. There are two nerfs coming in which don't impact support, but there are two buffs going into the support role for this patch, which is kind of nice. This is basically the last patch until the next season, and when the next season hits in early January, there'll be a complete overhaul of items and the support item and everything. Map changes, brush changes, warding changes, where you're going to be warding, lots of stuff. If you want to be up to date with all the support information, including new season guides coming out next year, I'm going to try and get as many done during the first few months of 2024. So Nami guides, Sona guides, Seraphine guides, Senna guides, Pike guides, etc. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more information on that. Of course, I'll be streaming on Twitch and on YouTube at the same time of this season and the rest of the season, at least anyway, and next season. Anyway, enough self-promotion. Let's have a look and see what actually has changed for a couple of the champions in the support role. Well, Hawaiian Pizza is going to be potentially be played a little bit in the support role. I'm sure it's going to be heavily banned and contested in the mid lane though. Braum is one of the champions that is getting that buff. It might not seem too crazy, but it's actually significant. Base mana regeneration going up slightly helps. I don't really remember having that many mana issues on Braum, but this is helpful still anyway to spam maybe 1 or 2 extra Qs in lane. The big one here is the ulti, which is the minimum knockup going up from 0.3 to 0.6, double duration there, and a secondary target knockup as well, 0.3 to 0.6. So considerable minimum duration knockup, because 0.3 really isn't a whole lot. 0.6 is a bit more noticeable. Also can give a chance of anyone that has knockup things like maybe a Samira or a Yasuo ulti to be able to play off. So nice little buff here for Braum. Nothing too crazy though overall, but it's nice. Brez getting more nerfed again for the millionth time. Gragas's passive is getting buffed. Gragas can be played as support, quite good into something like Leona, which we're going to talk about in a second, because his E, if he body slams into someone, it can actually kind of like, it messes up the dash on a lot of champions. So he's a good anti-engage champion. Think of it more like his body slam acts a bit like Milioku, and it kind of pushes them back as they're going in for a dash. But I'm not saying like Gragas is going to be crazy or anything like that after this, but it does help a little bit. Going down to Leona. So Leona buffs here are actually pretty good. I was kind of surprised when I was reading this in terms of like how much extra power they've given her. So firstly, they've buffed her W for later scaling in points. So you won't really notice it until you start putting like, once you got 3 points in your W, you'll notice the extra 5 armor and 5 extra magic resistance. So you're getting a lot of free gold from there just from the first 3 points, and then you will be maxing your W anyway like you always were. Getting an extra 10 armor and 10 magic resistance is pretty significant stuff actually, for free. You're not necessarily, when you're playing Leona, you're not necessarily building into magic resistance early, but there is like, you know, a decent amount of magic damage potentially coming from like the enemy support or like the enemy jungler or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty nice getting an extra 10 free magic resistance very early on. So definitely Leona will feel a little bit tankier during the early to early mid game. After that, I don't think you'll really notice any difference from the W resistances. But from the early game point, from maybe like minute 5 till like minute 20, you should feel actually a little bit tankier. Another considerable buff coming in with the Solar Flare. Plus 50 damage might not sound a lot, but actually that is very significant considering when you count this as an AoE. Now, it only did 100 damage and now it's going up to 150. And if you weren't aware before, Leona's ulti got nerfed essentially because they thought she did too much damage. So what I believe happened, if I remember correctly, it was maybe a few years ago now, where she ultied. You do the damage from the ult, but then it would like empower your next like auto attack on a target or a couple of auto attacks. I can't remember exactly how it was, but they removed the extra damage from the auto attacks because they deemed it too much because she was too bursty. Now this extra 50 will make up for that and the reason why she was nerfed in the first place. So Yeah, I think she's actually going to be quite good. Like that, the first 50 there is the most significant in terms of like percentage wise. So going from 100 to 150 is pretty crazy percentage wise. But also when you're talking about kind of like lowish health values anyway. So like if you're engaging on like a squishy like Nami, for example, going to be having around about like 800 to 1000 health at that point. You're doing already like an extra what 5% damage to that target already, to multiple targets potentially, because you can use that also to hit like maybe potentially 2 people at the same time, right? So doesn't sound like a lot, but actually when it comes down to when the full engage happens, it is a lot. It's like an extra ignite and a half tick. So think about how many targets that have got away on a 1 ignite tick or 2 ignite ticks. This would have like closed the gap, for example. So pretty good Leona changes. There isn't actually anything else here for support, so it's just a direct buff for support. So I will add in this Lucian one though. Lucian is pretty good with the Braum that got buffed slightly. He also is good with like Nami and the Leona and any like hard engage stuff. So, you know, these champions, even though they're getting direct buffs, when an AD carry like this gets buffed as well, it just makes your lane just stronger anyway, because Lucian plus Leona is pretty good, gets off those passive stacks pretty quickly off of the Leona. You know, with the Braum as well, the same with the passive stack. So Lucian is looking okay. I don't know if he's going to be like significantly stronger from this. His dash charge has been basically reduced from like 22 to 19, which is quite significant because he doesn't max E until second, or sometimes last, but usually second, if I remember correctly. So having the 3 seconds knocked off of his E is quite significant. So also you need to factor that in when you're playing against Solution, that he's going to be able to dash a little bit sooner too. So yeah, this is a good buff for if you're having to play Lucian. And I know a lot of Nami players like myself, you play Nami, sometimes you AD carry, then insta-locks in Lucian because they forgot about like the old days of how Nami Lucian used to be good. That will accidentally kind of increase like Nami's win rate marginally as well. Like not much, but like 0.1 to 0.2% maybe. Nothing really else here in the patch notes. We're having some like Vel'Koz changes here. Vel'Koz can be played as a support. There's some like bug fixes here, but I think they're going to be doing the main Vel'Koz mini rework thing next season, because I think there were some technical issues in terms of implementing what they actually wanted to do with the Vel'Koz. So keep an eye on that one for January. Vel'Koz. A little bit of information here before we actually go into the tier list itself. So the ranked season ends on January the 9th, 2024. So you have this patch. It's very unlikely that they'll probably even do a B patch, but if they do a B patch, then I'll cover it if it's major. But there shouldn't be really any significant changes going from now until January the 9th. I've checked the Riot scheduling on patches. This is meant to be the last patch of the season. So January the 9th is when the season ends, and January the 10th is when the next season starts. So yeah. So that's when it's quite early in January the 10th. So you got about a month now to climb, and hopefully my tier list, which I'm about to show you, will be helping you get those particular rewards. If it's like, you know, getting to gold or emerald or whatever, hopefully I can help you achieve your goals for the end of the holiday little sprint here. Arena is back, but I don't play Arena, so I don't really care about this stuff. I think there's everything. I think there's lots of nice skins coming out. Actually, I will add, because there are quite a few support skins coming in. The Winterblessed Thresh and the Winterblessed Senna. Winterblessed Senna splash art in particular is pretty good too. And you got the Winterblessed Hawaiian Pizza skin as well coming out, which might be, I'm sure people will try and play him as support. Alright, let's go into the actual tier list itself. I actually did some significant changes on this one, particularly for tier 3+. So as always, little disclaimer, my tier list is for if you're unranked to high diamond, really. Once you enter high emerald, once you enter diamond, this tier list will still work. But you'll probably find that a couple more of the mechanical ones, I'll just say, like for example Bard, would be potentially better for you if you want to go into that. Same with like Thresh as well. High mechanical champions generally don't do well in the lower ELO brackets because A, people can't play them properly, and B, they're heavily nerfed because they're over-tuned for like pro play. So only like, you know, the top few percent of people can really get what the full potential is of the champion to make them actually useful. So tier 5, nothing actually changed there. Tier 4, I don't recall bringing anyone down into tier 4. I actually put some champions out of tier 4 into tier 3. Tier 3, we have Senna is moved down from tier 2 to tier 3. Lux has been moved down from tier 2 to tier 3. Nami's the same. Brom was like on the lower end. This isn't left to right scaling, by the way, but like in my head it was like, okay, Brom is actually slightly stronger but not enough to go into tier 2 right now. Any other changes here? I think that's everything. So we got 2 downgrades here of the Senna and the Lux. Now Lux had been sitting tier 2 for quite a long time. I just feel like right now there are a couple of matchups she does quite well into, like Zyra, for example. She's really good into Zyra and Brand. She's a really good like anti-mage. So if you are finding like, if you like playing Lux and you're finding yourself up against a Brand or a Zyra, I'd actually say Lux is like a really good pick there. I can feel my Santa hat falling off ever so slowly. But yeah, Lux is a pretty good pick into mages. Very good into Xerath as well, actually. Apart from that, unless specifically maybe played with like a Kaylin, I wouldn't recommend actually playing her. So she's like a very specific champion under certain circumstances to play, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing her outside of those, if that makes sense. Nothing else to really want to talk about tier 3. Senna is just like a slight downgrade. Like if you are in high ELO, this is kind of like what I was talking about at the very start. Like if you're in diamond or whatever higher, then Senna becomes much more valuable. If you're in bronze or silver, no offense, you're not going to be using Senna to full potential, and you're just hindering yourself, honestly, from climbing. Moving up into tier 2, we've had Blitzcrank downgraded from tier 1 into tier 2. We've had a few upgrades. We've had Milio going up from tier 3 to tier 2. Leona going up, sorry, also to tier 3 to tier 2. Renata from tier 3 to tier 2. And Jenna from tier 3 to tier 2. So we've got a lot of promotions here. So Leona, Milio, Renata, and Jenna all got promotions. Blitzcrank got a demotion. So I know and understand that for a lot of people in unranked to particularly like silver, Blitzcrank will be your permaban. That's fine, whatever. I think you don't need to be so worried about him though, honestly. I don't think he's Giga OP, but if you still want to ban him, I don't blame you. He's still like a strong candidate since he is in still 2. So I get why you people ban him, but he's not like... There are going to be a couple of games where you might get ruffle stomped by Blitzcrank, but it feels like you remember those bad moments more than the positive moments. So yeah, honestly, from my perspective, I don't think Blitzcrank is tier 1. Leona gets a promotion from tier 3 to tier 2. Now, if I had to say whereabouts in tier 2 on a scaling she'd probably be like low tier 2. I think the armor buff and the magic resistant buff is significant for early to mid game. Definitely will make her a little bit tankier, which is nice. But I will say she still always has the issue of going in and then finding it very difficult to get out. She can rely on her ultimate to do the engage, and you can eye up from that whether it's worth going in or not, which is quite nice. And the ultimate's on a relatively low cooldown. So utilize that as best as you can. But on the whole, Leona is still... It can be a little bit of a riskier pick in terms of like the tank support picks, but it's better than something like the Rel now. Milio has been doing stably, like decently. Sorry for my phone beeping. Milio's been doing decently now for a few patches now. I think he was always kind of like highish tier 3. Once again, kind of like a lowish tier 2 pick. Still pretty good. The positives over him, over something like Lulu, which is in tier 4, is that he can generically buff more people easier. So what I mean by that is like Lulu is stuck on buffing her AD carry or anyone with auto attacks because of the way her W works. Yes, you can polymorph somebody, but the main use really is to shield someone and then amplify their attack speed to get more attacks coming from your passive, and then also to boost their attack speed. If you don't have an AD carry to buff, or your AD carry, like if your AD carry is really bad, Lulu's honestly like pretty dead weight. She's like 50% of a champion at that point. Now Milio might seem like he has the same issue because his campfire, his W, increases the auto attack range of AD carries, which is great, right? But he has the added benefit of that's AoE. So if you find out that your AD carry isn't doing so great, he can still benefit greatly with a Staff of Flowing Water, and then you can buff multiple members of your team with AP ratios, and that you also get yourself. So, and also the healing itself is also generically like nice as well. It's not a huge healing, but it's like something, and then also easy activation for your passive as well. So, lots of generic okayness for everybody, and then also really good still if you have a strong AD carry. So it's like you got a Lulu here, but also he can buff everyone else. So yeah, Milio is just flat out better than Lulu. I would say that the one thing Lulu really has over the Milio is the polymorph, and a little bit more single target protection on an AD carry. But then you could argue like Milio has that get out free jail card with his ultimate and stuff. So yeah, Milio is just better. Renata moving up from tier 3 to tier 2. Weird one, honestly. Like, Renata is one of those champions that is very basic, very easy to play, a little bit reliant on allies understanding how her W revive thing works. But on the whole, it's surprising like how well she can do. Giving her kit is very stale. Like, especially like, you know, she's a relatively newish champion still. Like, she's been out for what, 2 years, 3 years or something. But compared to like the other releases here, like there are more involved champions, especially from like, you know, so it's a little bit strange that how she can still do so well. So yeah, low tier 2 pick still, but still means that she's pretty good. Janna, I didn't move up onto tier 3 into tier 2 until now. She did get a buff on her passive. She definitely was tier 3 after the rework, or the pre-rework. I don't even know what you want to call it, the revert. She got that buff. It was just enough to put her in tier 2. I think she's probably like the weakest tier in tier 2 in my opinion, but she's still like a solid enchanter if that's something that you want to play. Obviously good at disengaging. That's definitely one of her strongest points. Wanting to be aggressive in lane. Please don't do Halo Blades or Arcane Comet. If I see one more Janna doing Halo Blades or Arcane Comet, I think I will... Oh, I won't leave cookies out for Santa this year. Okay? Alright, don't make me do it. Going up into tier 1. We have the Sona, Soraka, Xerath, Zyra, and Rakan. Rakan got a promotion from tier 2 to tier 1. I decided overall, like, I was going to initially just leave it as 4. Like, having 2 enchanters and 2 mages. But it felt weird not having a tank. So, Rakan overall, in my opinion, is better than Blitzcrank. So, Rakan is, like, the best tank that you want to play. Not only his engage is very, very good. You have a way to get out with your E. You've also got some sustain in lane with your Q as well, and the healing is actually pretty strong. So Rakan kind of does everything, and he does everything like reasonably well as well. So Rakan is very good right now. Zyra is probably being the standout person for such a long time now. She's like the best champion out of the 5 here. You can see how it's not like left or right, but the Zyra pick is definitely the strongest tier 1 pick in unranked to, at the very least, like low emerald. She does fall off in high elo. I don't get her to play her as often as I would like to in diamond or low master. She does fall off. She does have her weaknesses that she is easy to exploit once you know how. And she can require sometimes some kills to actually feel like you're doing stuff. But particularly for the lower ELOs, the unranked to low emerald, she's very, very good. Very, very good. Highly recommend if you just want to play. If you just one-tricked her to get to whatever rank you wanted to, you probably could do it. Honestly, just play Zyra. Xerath is also a very good candidate as well. He requires a little bit more gold than Zyra to get ahead. There's definitely an argument to go first strike with him because you need the extra gold. But my god, if you if you can land your ulti and if you can get into mid game with a decent chunk of gold, he does insane damage at insane ranges, and the only thing really stopping you is like a lot of assassins trying to jump on you and kill you. That's like the only way to counter him, and if they don't do that, then the enemy team is just going to go slowly chip down and just die. You can stall out the game a little bit as well, even as support, by clearing out the waves to buy you into late game. Xerath late game is very, very strong. Xerath is stronger late game than Zyra, hands down. His raw damage in actual fights is insane. Provides a little bit less utility than the Zyra, but as an actual like pure artillery mage is very, very good. Now Sona and Soraka, I'd say, are actually on this very similar kind of like power level. They're definitely the two best enchanters in the game. You've got both of them are like generically buffing. That's basically the key, really, is how good is the enchanter is mainly based on if they can buff other people other than their AD carry, so you're not just locked into that. Sona does that incredibly well late game. Very, very strong champion late game. Constantly buffing everyone is insane, especially if you're running like Staff of Flowing Water. Everyone's always going to have that extra AP buff. Very, very good at buffing people, and the shields are quite nice later into the game. Soraka is just raw healing output. Her healing is insane. Even if you force enemy team, if you see like, you know, I remember having a game where playing Soraka yesterday where 3 or 4 enemy players picked up Grievous Wounds, which you may think, oh no, that's going to make my healing weaker. Well, it does, but it's also made the damage on the enemy team a lot weaker too. Them having to commit to Grievous Wounds items. I think I was the only person healing on my team as well. I think I had like a Vayne that had like, you know, Blade of the Rune King, and that was literally it in terms of healing. Me, Soraka, and Blade of the Rune King on Vayne. It just means that if they have to commit into buying like a Morello and stuff like that, they're having to then spend 1,000 to 2,000 gold on a few players extra in terms of mitigating you. So they're having to spend like 6,000 gold on their team on items that they wouldn't have otherwise purchased. I mean, that's like, you know, the equivalent of like nearly 2 Infinity Edges, which is pretty insane. If you think of it like that, it's actually kind of insane. Now, not to say like all the stat value that they're getting is completely wasted. Like they still will have like a decent amount of like stat value there, but it's not like they're not picking items that they would otherwise want, right? They're not wanting to have to go Oblivion Orb. They're not wanting to have to go actual Executioners. They're wanting to go into more powerful numbers for, you know, the other people that are potentially on my team. So yeah, Soraka just forces people to do that, and it's kind of crazy. Sona can have that effect too, but she has shields as well, so that mitigates the Grievous Wounds a little bit too. But yeah, that is your top champions for the last patch of season 2023. Be sure to subscribe to get more content for the next season and guides. There'll definitely be guide changes as well, because itemization has changed a lot next season, so make sure you subscribe to get caught up on that. I also stream on twitch.tv/Bizzleberry, and I stream on this YouTube channel as well as a part of a multi-stream. So when I'm live on Twitch, 95% of the time I'm also live on YouTube as well. There are some minor exceptions in terms of like some sponsorship stuff, but pretty much every stream is also streamed onto YouTube, so do keep an eye on that, and it's important to have your notifications on for that too. So thank you very much who's subscribed, thank you for watching the video, and yeah, I hope this tier list helps you out, and good luck on the last climb. You'll see the next tier list probably on January the 9th. So have a happy new year, happy holidays, and see you next year.